care. I forget the former things I never dwell in the past. When trouble comes my way, I'm like, this too shall pass. 1,000 fall, but they never come to say. I count it all joy, me fella tremushe. My dough be dopey. My dough be dopey.
That was a track by Antonio Mwanamuke, popularly known as Yellow Dove. In 2010, he was riding the high wave. He had just released his debut gospel album Born to Win, and his tracks were played on numerous radio stations, and he was on the cusp of great things. Suddenly, it all came crashing down. My name is Peter Nawa, and you are listening to Silence Interrupted. Antonio is a musician, producer, presenter of TV shows such as Gospel Cruise, Enter In, My Bible Quiz, as well as co-producer of a talk show called Real Love. But Antonio almost never had the career he has today. In 2010, while pursuing a degree in mass communication and development studies at the University of Zambia, something happened. He had a mental illness. I had known Antonio through his music and as one of the hip-hop gospel artists. But it was not until I read his book, Born to Win, which was published in 2017, that I got to know his life story and his battle with mental illness. As soon as I finished reading his book, I knew I had to speak to him. At what point did you realize that you might have a problem or something wasn't well?
Yeah, that's a tricky part of the whole episode. I only knew about everything after I became well.
Okay.
Yeah, from the time I collapsed at Findeco House, that was in 2010, I didn't know what was happening to me. Sometimes people would only tell you to say you were at some school, you were shouting at people, you were taking off your clothes. So for me, during the whole episode, I thought I was okay. Like this is normal. Like I should do this. Why are people? In fact, I thought people that were questioning whatever it is that I was doing that was not normal were not okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I only got to know about the condition after I was okay. Began to research on it and began to hear what even more people would say that happened during the episode. So my memory was pretty much suppressed, so to say, because you do one thing, the following day you really don't remember what you did, what you said. I didn't know who I was, where I was, what year it was, things like that. So
did you know you were a university student?
During that period, there was very little that I knew about myself. I remember after everything, because the whole thing happened for a year. Somebody told me, no, you were acting very reckless in class and talking to lecturers like they're just your age mates, So there's very little that I controlled about how I behaved and what I knew about myself.
So which means the getting of the help of assistance was external and not your doing. Is that correct?
Yeah. My parents were pretty much in charge of everything. I was just like... compared to a very young person or a very old person and people are directing your path, even bathing, like my parents were bathing. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. So you were saying that all the information that you know what happened in that episode was told to you by either friends or family.
Mm-hmm.
From your interaction with them, was it something that they were concerned, worried, were they supportive, or how did you get that information? Or was it something that they were trying to make you feel bad about?
Mm-hmm. With family and a few close friends, it was because of the concern, like what is happening to you? Because the whole episode, first of all, doctors said it was untreated malaria that graduated to cerebral malaria and went to bipolar disorder and later into started showing signs of mental illness. So a few close friends were very concerned, but some people did not understand what was happening, so they would throw stones at me because of that. Like we can't do business with you, or you can't be seen around you, because the whole thing happened when, you know, a lot of people knew me as a minister of the word of God through music, radio, and other things that I was doing. So just imagine a young pastor behaving like that. That was the whole scenario. So some people didn't want to work with me at all. Some people judged me. Some churches banned me from their church. Like, you know, they would even put me on a poster and say Yellow Dove is going to be here, but hear of what was happening at that point and remove me without even considering, you know, what was going on. So the stigma was real, man. It was real, and even more painful when it comes from people that, you know.
Do you kind of understand where the stigma was coming from? For example, like the church, for example, like if they put you on a poster to go into minister, and then they hear maybe you, like you talk about in your book that you maybe were insulting somebody, or you were being arrogant or boastful, how that would backfire on the church itself. Do you kind of understand where
Yes.
they were coming from?
Yes, I do. You know, it makes sense, but I feel what even makes more sense is to sit down with the person. Because I had people who were not even from the church that would sit me down and say, what is happening? Because that's what a concerned person does. That's what we're called to do as children of God, especially that we're a Christian nation. You want to understand the person first before you can go ahead and judge. Can you help that person? You know, because half the time we see things on the surface, but it runs deep. And it's only when you take time to really find out what's going on that you begin to show care to that person.
Okay. So how did you go about getting treated for bipolar? So were you officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go about getting the treatment?
The steps that my family took, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so from the onset, when the behavior was strange, they took me to a Chinese hospital. I started getting treatment there, you know, getting injections and all sorts of treatments. My condition became a bit stable, but I would relapse again. So they took me to different hospitals, went to Unza Clinic at the time, and several others. So it was pretty much treatment, conventional medicine for me. We never did any African whatnot. Yeah, and you know, I'd get better, but relapse again. You know, so it was on and off. I would say the medicine did help to some extent, because you'd get back and start recollecting what has been happening and how you really need to be in charge of what's going on. But I would relapse again.
You were a gospel artist, known popularly as the Yellow Dove. How would you reconcile what you're experiencing with your Christian faith and belief? Did you, for some reason, think it was some punishment from God, or it was some demon possession? Did that ever cross your mind, or did people say that to you?
Yeah, you know, you think all sorts of things, because medicine, first of all, failed to some extent, because I would relapse, and pretty much all hope was lost, because, you know, you wake up, you think you're okay. In the afternoon, you start saying things that you're not supposed to say. Some people thought I was on drugs. During that period, I lost a lot of deals, because I had a famous song, "What Would Jesus Do If He Came to Zambia?" And it opened up a lot of doors for me. But because of that, a lot of doors were closed too.
What would Jesus do if he came to Zambia? What would Jesus do?
I would take him to Maziopa compound, shelter where everyone would be found. Then I would take him to Chacha Road, and at night he would warm those who sleep in the cold. He would also feed the streets.
So even after God healed me, because like one morning I just woke up and I was fine, you know, thinking things will go bizarre during the day, but the following day again, everything is okay. And how I knew that I was okay was because everything that happened during that year, every little detail, I was able to remember. You know, God just sort of put my mind in order, and I was able to have a good memory again. I was able to know who I was, where I was, what I was doing. The fact that I was no longer in Unza anymore. I had been out of school for a year. And also just look at the text messages that I've been receiving the past year and see how some friends, you know, didn't want to work with me because they heard so and so. Some people didn't want. I remember that time I was even dating some girl that, I broke up with. So you recollect all those things. You're like, what? I broke up with her. I'm not in school. I've lost this. I've lost that. So there was a huge, a lot of questions. Was it demonic? Has God forsaken me? I started questioning my faith, So even though you know for sure that it's God who's healed you, you start questioning him to say, but why did you allow it in the first place? I'm only human. So it's normal that such questions start to render. But what those questions did when I tolerated them is they led me into a deep depression, because now you hate God, you blame God for your situation, and you don't want to go outside because every person you meet is asking you what you said on radio, or what you did in public, or is it true you're the one that went mentally ill and things like that. So many talks. So I stayed in the house pretty much every day. My friends even started telling me I became light, because like the whole 2011 I was just in the house, depressed, and you can only get depressed so far, you can only get so low until you hit rock bottom and start thinking, you know what, yes, I'm mad at God. Yes, but what is that going to do? Because it won't change who he is. He's still God. If anything, I'm just losing more of time here on earth and not achieving what I'm set to achieve. So I had already lost 2010, and I was beginning to start losing 2011 also. Yes. So during that whole period, I came across a scripture in the Bible. That's Isaiah 43 verse 18 and 19 that says, forget the former things, don't dwell in the past. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? So that scripture really challenged me, my doubts, my fears, my questions, and it's as simple as that. Forget the former things. So for me, it was a starting point to say, okay, let me start from here. And it got to me so much that I would only pray that prayer the whole year, like meditate on just one verse to say, I can't do all these other things. This one thing I need to do. I need to forget the former things, not dwell on the past. Trust that God is going to do a new thing in my life. So it began from there, and yeah.
Okay. So before your experience, how much knowledge or information did you have about mental illness?
Very little. Yeah, very, very little, if none.
Okay. And I'm sure we all probably knew somebody in the community who had maybe mental challenge. What were your views or perceptions of them at that time before your experience?
Like in the African setup, you see somebody like that, you think, Banamuloa, maybe he stole something and the owner went to a witch doctor. There's always that bad connotation attached to that, like, why would he become like that? And at times, maybe you hear one or two people in the neighborhood that would smoke weed excessively, and now they're mentally ill. So all these bad connotations attached to the disease. Just as a little boy, you hear such stories. So you grow up with them thinking, it's either he was bewitched or, weed.
Yeah. You decided to write a story, put your story into a book, and that's how I came to know of you. Weren't you afraid of being so candid and honest and open about your life in a book, because it's out there and everybody can read it? Why do you think it was important for you to talk about your experience with mental illness and more so put it down into a book?
At first, I didn't even want to talk about it because there were so many people that saw me during that period. I felt ashamed.
Of this period, Antonio writes in his book, every move I made seemed to hit a concrete wall. I felt like a failure. My radio show was no more. I had lost my university scholarship. My dreams were nowhere near reality. My reputation out there was worse than I thought, and I was standing there in the midst of everything with nothing but a broken heart. My self-esteem also dropped tremendously. I would be around people, but would feel lonely, a feeling I knew all too well in my teenage life.
Even the depression thing, even if God started restoring my life, like I went back to university, I got back doing music. I went back on TV, but there's so much shame because you don't know what people are thinking, and how many people are you going to explain to say, no, I was sick, it wasn't weed, it's the whole country. So I just brushed that whole episode. I didn't want to deal with it. But, God convicted me to begin to share my testimony, because literally it was a testimony. We tried all sorts of medicine, couldn't work. And, for me, the only way I can explain it was a miracle that I'm able to reason and do things today. So at one time, I was invited for a radio interview, and we're just talking music. But, I don't know what prompted me to just pour my heart out and speak about the things that I've been through. And even the presenter was shocked. Like, I saw you during that period. I thought it was weed or something. I didn't know that's what you went through. And after I shared my story, so many people called, either they've got a family member or, because one of the things I stressed in my story is not to give up on people that are going through stuff, so because even my family didn't know what caused it. Yeah. At some point they were even thinking maybe he started drugs, but the one thing I thank God for is they never gave up on me. So many people called in, so many people were touched, even people that had no connection to mental illness. They just needed a message of hope. So when I saw that, I was like, I need to share my story more, and what better way than to put it in a book, get the message out there. So now I don't feel any shame. I actually smile when I think about what I've been through, because it's a testament of the fact that God is there.
So what do you think can be done or how can you help an individual who is judgmental, stigmatizes against individuals with mental illness? What would you like them to know?
I'm here today. I'm able to help a lot of other people through my TV shows and the things that I get to do. And it's because my family didn't give up on me. A few friends didn't give up on me. Prayer-wise, and making sure that we try out any other doctor out there. And even though it seemed it didn't work or there was no proper explanation to what I was going through, but the diagnosis was there, they never gave up on me. So, my encouragement to people out there is, what Jesus said the greatest commandment is to love one another. And it does not categorize to say separate people who are HIV positive, separate people who are mentally ill. It says to love one another. And you'll be shocked just how much that love can even help process healing that person.
And probably now just the final question. Are you now living the goals and plans that you wanted to achieve, and normal life? Is everything well with you at this moment?
Yes, everything is perfectly well. I mean, I've heard people say, when you're bipolar, you're always bipolar. But, I choose to believe that when God heals, he heals. He's a God that is above any disease. I do not know why I went through what I went through, but one thing I do know is God restored everything that I lost. He's a God of hope. He's a God who cares about what we go through. Sometimes he feels so distant, but just hold on, hang on in there. If there's somebody going through something and you're listening to this podcast right now, could be at home or wherever you are, hold on to God. He really does care, and in the book of Job it says that he's already set an end to that problem. So don't lose heart, don't lose faith, and know that God is there.
Listening to Antonio, I felt the power that is there in sharing one's story. He did not have to share what he went through, but in this period of stigma and discrimination, it is voices like his that we desperately need. By writing a book and speaking out, he is contributing to breaking down the stereotypes against individuals with mental illness in Zambia. He also showed that mental illness can happen to anyone, you, me, and even the neighbor next door. But people can and do get healed from it. He sought treatment and believed in God. Antonio, also known as the Yellow Dove, has thousands of fans, and he has a platform to share his message of mental health in Zambia. On an international front, other famous figures have come forth to discuss their mental health challenges, such as Prince Harry, Lady Gaga, Kendrick Lamar, Adele, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, J.K. Rowling, Halle Berry, Kid Cudi, to mention a few, who have suffered from a variety of illnesses such as depression, anxiety issues, suicidal thoughts, and bipolar disorder. In October 2016, rapper Kid Cudi wrote an open letter to his fans admitting his mental health struggles. The letter said in part, "Yesterday I checked myself into rehab for depression and suicidal urges. I am not at peace. I haven't been since you've known me. If I didn't come here, I would have done something to myself. I simply am a damaged human swimming in a pool of emotions every day of my life. There is a raging violent storm inside of my heart at all times. I don't know what peace feels like. I don't know how to relax. My anxiety and depression have ruled my life for as long as I can remember, and I never leave the house because of it. I can't make new friends because of it. I don't trust anyone because of it. And I'm tired of being held back in my life. I deserve to have peace. I deserve to be happy and smiling. Why not me? I guess I gave so much of myself to others, I forgot that I need to show myself some love too. I think I never really knew how. I'm scared. I'm sad. I feel like I let a lot of people down. And again, I'm sorry. It's time I fix me. I'm nervous, but I'ma get through this." The honesty in this letter touched me. Kid Cudi's candid letter led to other men sharing their own mental health battles on Twitter with the hashtag #YouGoodMan. Black men having discussions about mental health appeared in news broadcasts, and articles were written about the topic, all because Kid Cudi admitted he had mental health struggles. What celebrities like Antonio can do by speaking about their mental health challenges is that it can bring awareness to this issue because of the large platforms they command. This can make people not to feel ashamed to admit that they are depressed, have anxiety problems, or are stressed. The more people we have sharing their stories, the less uncommon it becomes. If you would like a copy of Antonio's book, Born to Win, you can find it at Radio Christian Voice, or you can get in touch with him on his Facebook page, Yellow Dove. The sound design of this podcast is courtesy of Zapsplat. You can get in touch with me at www.peternawa.com. My Facebook page is Peter W. Nawa, and my Twitter handle is @PeterNawa. I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions on what has been discussed in this episode. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. I have been your host, Peter Nawa, and you have been listening to Silence Interrupted.